The moment Riker Vaughn looked directly into my camera lens, I forgot how to breathe. The basketball arena smelled like polished hardwood, fresh paint, and the kind of ambition that probably came with endorsement deals. Somewhere above me, fluorescent lights hummed softly while sneakers squeaked across the court in sharp bursts that echoed through the massive space. I stood just inside the entrance, gripping my camera strap like it was a life preserver. This was a mistake. A terrible, humiliating, cosmic-level mistake. I should have switched majors. I should have transferred schools. I should have become a park ranger somewhere without basketball players. Instead, I was here, at Westbrook Arena, about to spend the next 8 weeks documenting the very team led by the man whose jacket I had publicly assaulted with caramel cold brew. Bennett. A voice startled me from my spiral. One of the assistant coaches stood near the scorer's table holding a clipboard. Yeah. Film department? Unfortunately. The coach blinked. What? Nothing. He pointed toward center court. You're with Vaughn. Of course I was. Naturally. The universe loved consistency. My gaze followed the direction of his finger. Riker stood near mid-court talking to another player. Even from a distance he looked annoyingly composed. Dark hair slightly messy. Gray practice shirt. Athletic shorts. The kind of effortless confidence that made magazine covers look underachieving. Like he belonged wherever he happened to be standing. As if sensing my stare, he looked up. Directly at me. My stomach immediately attempted to leave my body. For one ridiculous second the gym seemed quieter. Not silent. Just distant. Like someone had lowered the volume on everything except my pulse. Then Riker started walking toward me. Great. Fantastic. Maybe he'd finally decided to finish what the entire campus thought he'd started at the festival. I briefly considered pretending to faint. Before I could commit to the bit, he stopped a few feet away. Up close, he looked exactly the same as he had under the stadium lights that night. Calm. Controlled. Impossible to read. You're early. His voice was low and steady. I blinked. I am. He glanced toward the giant digital clock mounted on the wall. Practice starts in 12 minutes. Oh, I checked my phone. Right. Brilliant response, Noah. Future Pulitzer winner. Riker held out several sheets of paper. I stared at them suspiciously before accepting them. Practice schedules. Game dates. Travel information. Interview windows. Everything neatly organized. These are approved filming periods, he said. If you need additional access, ask me first. I looked down at the packet, then back up at him, then down again. That's it. One eyebrow lifted slightly. What else were you expecting? I wasn't sure how to answer that. Public humiliation? A restraining order? An invoice for the jacket? Riker watched me struggle through the question. The corner of his mouth moved almost imperceptibly. Not quite a smile. More like a thought about a smile. Then it disappeared. You'll need safety clearance before game coverage, he added. Coach will explain. Right. Another pause. Another opportunity for my social skills to abandon me. About the coffee, Riker cut me off. It's fine. I stopped. What? The jacket survived. His tone remained perfectly neutral. You can stop looking like you're about to apologize at my funeral. For a second, I genuinely wondered if I'd imagined the sentence. Then realization hit. Was that a joke? Riker Vaughn had made a joke. At me. To me. My brain didn't have proper procedures for this situation. Before I could respond, another voice cut across the court. Well, look who finally showed up. A tall player with broad shoulders and a grin that felt sharper than necessary approached us. Mason Carter. I recognized him instantly from campus posters. Starting forward. Junior. Human embodiment of trouble. His eyes landed on me. Film boy. I sighed internally. There it was. The nickname. It had taken less than 48 hours. Nice to meet you too. Mason folded his arms. You're the coffee guy? That's me. Local celebrity. A few nearby players laughed. Mason didn't. Try not to spill anything expensive this time. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Nothing dramatic. Just enough for me to notice. Before I could force out. Another joke, Riker spoke. Practice starts in 10. Mason's expression tightened. Yeah, I know. Then get ready. Simple words. Calm voice. Yet Mason immediately stepped back. Interesting. Very interesting. He shot me one last look before walking away. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He hates me. He hates everyone, Riker said. Don't take it personally. I glanced at him. That doesn't make me feel better. Another almost smile flickered across his face. Then a whistle blew from across the gym. Players began moving toward the court. Riker turned to leave. Halfway through the motion, he paused. Bennett. My heart performed something medically concerning. Yeah. His eyes met mine briefly. Try filming the game instead of staring at me. Then he walked away. I stood frozen beside the scorer's table while heat rushed straight into my face. Somewhere nearby, a basketball bounced. Players laughed. Coaches shouted instructions. But all I could hear was one sentence repeating inside my head. He notices every single time. The first text arrived before I even made it back to my apartment. My phone buzzed while I was crossing the student quad, and for one hopeful second I assumed it was Tyler asking whether I had survived my encounter with Westbrook basketball. It was not Tyler. Unknown number. The message contained only 6 words. Stay away from what is not yours. I stopped walking so abruptly that a student behind me nearly walked into my backpack. The screen glowed in my hand. The words looked simple, harmless even, but something cold slid quietly down my spine. Around me, campus life continued normally. Students laughed outside the library. Someone skateboarded past blasting music. A professor hurried across the lawn carrying enough papers to qualify as a structural hazard. Everything looked ordinary, which somehow made the message feel worse. Because whoever sent it was out there somewhere among all these people. Watching, I shoved the phone into my pocket and immediately regretted it. Then I pulled it back out, then put it away again. This continued for most of the walk home. By the time I reached my apartment, Tyler was sitting on the couch eating cereal directly from the box. "You look haunted," he said. Again, I tossed my camera bag onto the chair. Someone texted me. Tyler pointed his spoon dramatically. Was it the basketball captain confessing his secret love? It was a threat. Less exciting. I showed him the screen. Tyler read the message twice. Then once more. Okay. This is either a very committed prank or somebody desperately needs a hobby. He handed the phone back. "Did you tell Riker?" I laughed. An actual laugh. The kind that escaped before common sense could intervene. Why would I tell Riker? Tyler stared at me. Because every creepy message somehow involves him. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Unfortunately, he had a point. The next morning practice started at 7, which should be illegal. The sky was still pale when I arrived at the arena carrying enough camera equipment to qualify as emotional support luggage. Most of the team was already there. Sneakers squeaked across the court. Coaches shouted instructions. Players stretched along the sidelines. I found a position near the baseline and started filming. At first, everything felt normal. Well, as normal as documenting elite athletes while trying not to think about mysterious threats could feel. Then I noticed something strange. Every time I adjusted the camera, Riker somehow appeared in frame. Not intentionally. At least I did not think so. Yet somehow, whenever I reviewed footage, there he was. Running drills. Talking to coaches. Standing near teammates. Looking toward the camera. Looking toward me. The realization made me nearly drop a memory card. No, absolutely not. I was imagining things. Main character syndrome. Delusions caused by caffeine. That had to be it. Except later, during a water break, I caught him doing it again. Riker stood near the bench talking with an assistant coach. Then his gaze shifted. Directly toward me. Not the camera. Me. The look lasted less than a second. Then he turned away. My stomach performed several acrobatic maneuvers without proper safety equipment. "You are staring." I nearly launched myself into orbit. Mason stood beside me holding a sports drink. "Jesus Christ." He looked amused. "You do that a lot." "Do what?" "Jump like a frightened squirrel." "Thank you." Mason nodded toward the court. "You keep filming him. He is literally the team captain." "Sure." His grin widened. "That must be it." Before I could respond, Coach Henderson blew his whistle. Everyone returned to practice. Mason jogged away looking entirely too pleased with himself. I spent the next hour pretending I had not just been psychologically attacked by a 6'3" forward. After practice ended, players filtered toward the locker rooms. I packed equipment slowly, reviewing clips on my camera screen. Most looked good. Clean shots. Strong audio. Exactly what Professor Martinez wanted. One clip made me pause. Riker stood near center court during a drill. Nothing unusual there. But midway through the footage, he glanced toward the camera and smiled. Not a big smile. Barely noticeable. Half a second at most. Yet somehow it felt completely different from every expression I had seen before. Warmer. Human. Real. My pulse immediately forgot how to behave. "You were supposed to send me copies." His voice came from directly behind me. I spun so fast I almost dropped the camera. Riker stood there holding a towel around his neck. "Copies." Brilliant response, Noah. Again. He nodded toward the footage. "For media review." "Right." I cleared my throat. "Obviously." His eyes flickered briefly toward my phone sticking out of my pocket. "You look tired." The observation caught me off guard. What? You keep checking your phone. His voice remained calm. Did something happen? For one dangerous second, I almost told him. About the texts. About the warnings. About the strange feeling that someone was paying too much attention to both of us. Then fear arrived. Fast and irrational. What if Riker thought I was creating drama? What if he laughed? What if he already knew who was sending them? Nothing, I said. The word came out too quickly. Riker studied me. Silence stretched between us. Not awkward exactly. Just heavy. Like there were two different conversations happening and neither of us knew how to start the second one. Finally, he nodded once. If that changes, tell me. My breath caught slightly. Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Something in his expression hardened instantly. The warmth vanished. The walls returned. Riker slipped the phone into his pocket. See you tomorrow, Bennett. Then he walked away. I watched him disappear through the tunnel leading toward the locker rooms. A few seconds later, my own phone vibrated. Unknown number. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. This time there was no text. Only a photograph. A picture of me standing inside the arena 20 minutes earlier. Taken from somewhere high in the bleachers. Watching. Waiting. Someone had been close enough to photograph me. That was the thought that followed me all the way home. Not the picture itself. Not even the fact that it came from another anonymous number. Just the realization that while I had been standing in the arena reviewing footage, somebody had been watching me from the shadows of the bleachers. The image sat on my phone screen like a stain I could not scrub away. I showed it to Tyler the second I walked through the apartment door. He stared at it for several seconds. Then he stood up. That was unusual enough to concern me. Okay, he said. I officially hate this. Thank you. No, seriously. He pointed at the photo. This is not funny anymore. I sank onto the couch. I know. For the first time since the messages started, neither of us made a joke. The silence lingered longer than it should have. Outside, late afternoon sunlight painted the apartment windows gold. Normally, I like that hour. It made everything feel softer. Today, it only made me feel exposed. The next morning, I arrived on campus carrying enough anxiety to qualify for extra credit. Students moved through the sidewalks in clusters. Backpacks bounced. Coffee cups steamed in cold autumn air. Everything looked perfectly normal, which somehow felt suspicious now. My phone remained buried in my pocket. I had blocked 3 anonymous numbers already. A fourth could appear at any moment. By noon, I was filming interviews for the documentary project. Most players were easy enough to work with. A few were camera shy. Others clearly enjoyed hearing themselves talk. Mason belonged firmly in the second category. So what exactly are you documenting? He asked while adjusting his practice jersey. The team. Right. He smirked. The team. I immediately recognized the tone. Yes, the team. Not just the captain. You people are obsessed with this joke. Mason looked delighted. That was not a no. Before I could formulate a response involving professional boundaries and possibly a brick wall, another voice entered the conversation. Coach wants everyone in the conference room. Riker. The atmosphere shifted instantly. It always seemed to when he appeared. Not because he demanded attention. Somehow that would have been easier. Instead, people simply gave it to him. Naturally. Effortlessly. Like gravity. Mason rolled his eyes. There he is. Riker ignored him. His gaze landed briefly on me. Interview schedule changed. Okay. You are coming with us. I blinked. What? Media briefing. He spoke as though this made perfect sense. You need footage. Before I could argue, he was already walking away. Mason laughed under his breath. Congratulations. On what? Being adopted. I hated how warm my face immediately became. The conference room sat on the second floor overlooking the court. Players filtered inside while coaches discussed upcoming games. I set up equipment near the wall and started recording. Halfway through the meeting, a woman in a Navy business suit entered carrying several folders. Every player immediately sat straighter. Even Mason stopped talking. Interesting. The woman approached Riker first. Your father wants confirmation by Friday. My camera nearly slipped. Father? Riker's expression remained unreadable. I know. She handed him a folder. The board is expecting a decision. The board. Not coach. Not athletic department. Board. Something about the conversation felt completely disconnected from college basketball. Before I could hear more, the woman noticed me watching. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then the discussion ended. Just like that. The folder disappeared into Riker's backpack. The mystery remained. Great. Another mystery. Exactly what I needed. Later that afternoon, practice ended early. Players drifted toward the parking lot while I packed equipment. The sun hung low above campus buildings, casting long shadows across the pavement. I was halfway to my car when voices stopped me. Hey, film boy. Mason again. Of course. He stood beside two teammates. You know people are talking, right? I sighed. People are always talking. Fair. He shrugged. But now they think you and Riker are spending a lot of time together. Wonderful. Exactly what every anxious person wanted to hear. I am filming a documentary. Sure. One teammate grinned. That sounds convincing. Heat climbed into my face. Mason looked ready to continue when another vehicle rolled into the lot. A black SUV. Expensive enough to make my student loans nervous. The vehicle stopped near the curb. A man in a dark suit stepped out first. Then another. Neither looked like students. Neither looked like coaches. They moved with quiet professionalism toward Riker, who had just exited the arena. The entire parking lot seemed to notice. See, Mason muttered. There is the prince. Riker exchanged a few words with the suited men before glancing toward us. His eyes landed directly on me, then on Mason. Something unreadable passed across his expression. A second later, he changed direction and walked over. Problem. The question sounded simple. Yet somehow the teasing vanished instantly. Mason raised both hands. Relax. Riker remained calm. I asked a question. Silence stretched. Not hostile. Just enough to make everyone suddenly interested in other things. Finally, Mason shook his head. No problem. Riker looked at me. You ready? I blinked. Ready for what? The interview schedule. His voice stayed casual. Tomorrow morning. Oh, right. Another pause. Then he nodded once and headed back toward the waiting SUV. The suited men opened the rear door for him. Opened the door. Like he was somebody important. Not campus famous important. Something bigger. Something hidden. I watched the vehicle disappear beyond the parking lot gates. A moment later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach dropped instantly. The new message contained only one sentence. You really should stop asking questions about him. The rumor reached me before breakfast. That was the problem with college campuses. News traveled faster than Wi-Fi, and usually with half the facts missing. By the time I walked into the student center, 3 separate people had already looked at me, looked at their phones, then looked back at me again. Never a good sign. I bought a coffee and immediately regretted the decision. Coffee, and I had a complicated history now. My phone buzzed. Tyler, do not panic. Naturally, I panicked. What happened? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then finally, someone posted photos. My stomach dropped. 30 seconds later, I found the post. Westbrook Confessions. Anonymous. Of course. The first image showed me standing beside Riker after practice. The second showed the black SUV from the parking lot. The third was somehow worse. A blurry shot of Riker looking in my direction during the media briefing. The caption read, Film boy climbing the social ladder, one basketball captain at a time. Hundreds of comments had already appeared underneath. Some laughed. Some speculated. Some were surprisingly cruel. Apparently, the internet remained the internet regardless of location. I stared at the screen long enough for the words to blur. Then another comment appeared. Maybe he is only around Riker because he wants whatever money Vaughn is hiding. Money. There it was again. The same strange mystery circling around him. The board. The SUV. The men in suits. The anonymous warnings. None of it made sense. Unfortunately, the humiliation did. By the time I reached the communications building for class, people were whispering openly. Not everyone. Most students had lives. But enough. Just enough to make every hallway feel smaller. I kept my eyes on the floor. The worst part was that I could not even defend myself. Anything I said would only feed the rumor. So I sat through 2 classes pretending my phone was not exploding with notifications. Around noon, Professor Martinez asked to review documentary footage. I arrived at his office already exhausted. Halfway through the meeting, another student walked in. Derek Lang, Senior. Film Department Golden Child. Derek had the kind of confidence usually reserved for politicians and people who had never been told no. He noticed me immediately. Then he noticed my phone screen. His smile widened. Big week for you, Bennett. I pretended not to hear him. Derek ignored that. Must be nice. Professor Martinez frowned. Nice. Getting special access. Derek leaned against the desk. Some of us had to earn opportunities. The implication landed exactly where he intended. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Professor Martinez opened his mouth. Derek continued first. I mean, everybody knows why the basketball team suddenly loves being filmed. Silence settled over the office. Heavy, sharp, familiar. I hated moments like that. The ones where you knew defending yourself would somehow make everything worse. So I stayed quiet. Unfortunately, The door opened right then, and everything changed. Riker Vaughn stepped into the office. For one impossible second, nobody spoke. Even Derek looked surprised. Riker glanced between us, then toward Professor Martinez. You asked for the updated release forms. The professor blinked. Right? Yes. Riker handed over several papers. Simple. Professional. Normal. Then his gaze shifted toward Derek. Was there a problem? Derek laughed awkwardly. No. Riker waited. That was all. No anger. No threat. Just silence. Somehow it worked better than either. Derek shifted his weight. We were talking about the project. Good. Riker nodded once. Because Noah earned the assignment. The room went completely still. My brain stopped functioning somewhere around the word Noah. Nobody called me Noah. Outside close friends. Outside family. Riker rarely called anyone anything. Yet there it was. Casual. Certain. Derek looked caught off guard. I did not mean, I know what you meant. Riker's voice remained calm. You were wrong. That was it. No speech. No argument. Just 4 words. You were wrong. Derek suddenly found the floor fascinating. A minute later, he excused himself and left. Interview session. My brain continued being unhelpful. What? The corner of his mouth twitched. That means no. Professor Martinez laughed into a folder. Traitor. I gathered my equipment with what dignity remained. Outside the office, the hallway had mostly emptied. Students moved through distant classrooms. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I finally managed. You did not have to do that. Riker adjusted the strap of his backpack. Yes. Why? He looked at me. Really looked at me. The kind of look that made every other sound fade slightly around the edges. Because people keep treating you like a story. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Riker glanced away first. And because none of this is your fault. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. That same unreadable expression crossed his face again. The walls returned. The distance returned. He checked the screen and slipped the phone away. Come on, Bennett. Where are we going? Interview session. He started walking. And apparently I cannot trust you to survive campus gossip alone. For the first time all day, I laughed. A real laugh. The kind that surprised both of us. Riker looked over. Something warmer appeared briefly in his eyes. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. My smile disappeared instantly. I opened the message while walking. One sentence appeared on the screen. He cannot protect you forever. The worst discoveries always happen by accident. Nobody set you down gently. Nobody handed you a neatly organized folder labeled life-changing information. Instead, you stumbled into them carrying a camera and a bottle of water on a random Thursday afternoon. I was reviewing footage in one of the media editing rooms when it happened. The basketball team had finished another practice. My footage looked good. The documentary was finally starting to come together. For almost an hour, I managed to forget about anonymous messages, campus rumors, and the increasingly confusing existence of Riker Vaughn. Then my phone buzzed. Tyler had sent a link. No context, which was immediately suspicious. I opened it anyway. 5 seconds later, I wished I had not. The article came from a national business magazine. The headline alone nearly made me choke on my water. Vaughn Industries heir expected to assume board position after graduation. You angry? The fact that he asked nearly made it worse. Should I be? Riker lowered the tablet slowly. Silence stretched between us. Around us, players moved through warm-ups. Basketballs bounced. Coaches shouted instructions. Somehow it all felt distant. You found out. Not a question. A statement. I laughed once. The sound came out sharper than intended. Found out what? Another silence. Then Riker sighed softly. About my family. There it was. The confirmation. The thing I had not actually wanted. My chest tightened unexpectedly. You mean the billion-dollar company? I asked. That family. Riker's jaw tightened slightly. It is complicated. That is your explanation? No. His voice remained calm. It is the truth. For some reason that irritated me even more. Maybe because he looked completely sincere. You could have told me. The words escaped before I could stop them. Riker looked genuinely surprised. Why? The question hit harder than intended. Why? Because friends told each other things. Because people who trusted each other did not leave landmines scattered across conversations. Because I had started believing the version of him I saw every day. The basketball captain. The guy who quietly defended me. The guy who noticed when I looked tired. Instead, I simply said, forget it. I started packing equipment. Fast. Messy. Childish. Somewhere in the distance, a whistle blew. Players moved across the court. Life continued normally while my emotions behaved like a malfunctioning smoke alarm. Riker stepped closer. Not enough to crowd me. Just enough that I noticed. Noah. My name sounded different when he said it, which was extremely unhelpful. Do not. He stopped. Do not what? Do not look at me like that. Confusion crossed his face. Real confusion. Like what? I swallowed hard. Like you were the one who got hurt. For the first time since I met him, Riker had no immediate response. The silence lingered. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Honest. Finally, I grabbed my camera bag and walked toward the exit. Halfway across the court, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The message contained a single sentence. Now you understand why he lied to you. Rain started. 20 minutes after I left the arena. Not dramatic movie rain. Not thunder and lightning. Just a steady cold drizzle that turned sidewalks silver and soaked through my hoodie one stubborn drop at a time. Normally, I would have appreciated it. Rain made everything look cinematic. Tonight, it only made me feel tired. The anonymous message replayed in my head with irritating persistence. Now you understand why he lied to you. I hated how much it bothered me. More importantly, I hated that part of me believed it. By the time I reached the far side of campus, the drizzle had become a downpour. Students sprinted between buildings. Umbrellas collided like confused birds. Water streamed down the stone pathways. I pulled my head lower and kept walking. My phone buzzed. Tyler, where are you? Drowning dramatically. Bring snacks to my funeral. Tyler immediately replied. Very funny. Get inside. I was about to answer when headlights swept across the sidewalk. A black SUV rolled quietly to the curb beside me. I stopped walking. The vehicle stopped too. For one brief second, I considered every terrible decision that had brought me here. Then the rear passenger door opened. Riker stepped out. Rain immediately darkened his hair. Somehow he still looked annoyingly composed. You are going to get sick. I stared at him. Hello to you too. He ignored that. Get in. No. 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 The rain continued falling around us. Neither of us moved. Somewhere nearby, thunder rumbled softly across the sky. Riker folded his arms. You are angry. Congratulations. Noah. My name sounded careful, which somehow made everything worse. You could have told me. There it was again. The thing I had been trying not to say. Riker looked away briefly toward the rain streaking across the pavement. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter. Most people stop seeing me when they find out. The answer caught me off guard. What? They stop seeing me. He glanced back at me. I become the company, the money, the future position, the family name. Water dripped from his jacket sleeve. The rain softened everything around us. The campus lights, the parking lot, the distance between us. That is not fair. I said, maybe not. A humorless smile touched his face. It is still true. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Students hurried past carrying umbrellas. Nobody paid attention to us. Just another conversation in the rain. Except it did not feel ordinary. It felt important. Dangerous in a completely different way. The kind of dangerous that came from honesty. My father decided my future when I was 12, Riker said suddenly. Board meetings. Public appearances. Interviews. Every year was planned before it happened. I blinked. He had never volunteered information before. Not like this. Basketball was the only thing that was mine. His gaze drifted toward the rain. Then that became public too. Something tightened painfully in my chest. Because for the first time since meeting him, I could see the exhaustion underneath the confidence. The loneliness underneath the control. Everyone on campus looked at Riker Vaughn and saw the golden boy. The star athlete. The future executive. The guy who always knew exactly what to do. Nobody seemed to ask whether he wanted any of it. That sounds awful. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Riker laughed softly. A real laugh this time. Small but genuine. You are the first person who has ever said that. The realization hit me unexpectedly. Maybe because everyone else was too busy envying him. Maybe because nobody imagined somebody with everything could still feel trapped. Rainwater dripped from my sleeves. My shoes were soaked. My hair was definitely a disaster. Yet somehow I no longer wanted to walk away. Riker looked at me carefully. I should have told you. I swallowed. Yeah, I know. Another silence settled between us. Softer this time. Less painful. The kind that did not demand to be filled. Finally, Riker opened the SUV door again. Now get in before you catch pneumonia. That feels medically exaggerated. Get in, Bennett. Despite everything, I smiled. Just a little. The drive across campus was quiet. Warm air filled the vehicle. Rain tapped gently against the windows. For the first time in days, my shoulders relaxed. When we reached my apartment building, Riker walked me to the entrance despite my protests. The rain had eased to a mist by then. We stopped beneath the awning. Thank you, I said. He nodded once. Get some sleep. Simple words. Nothing dramatic. Yet neither of us immediately moved. Something unspoken lingered between us. Something neither of us seemed ready to name. Then Riker's phone buzzed. The change was instant. His expression hardened. The walls returned. He checked the screen. For the briefest moment, I caught a glimpse of the sender. Vaughn Industries Executive Board. My stomach sank. Whatever freedom existed in this moment clearly had limits. Riker slipped the phone away. Good night, Noah. Then he walked back toward the waiting SUV. I stood under the awning watching the taillights disappear into the rain. My phone buzzed seconds later. Unknown number. The message contained a photograph. Not of me this time. Not of Riker. It was an old newspaper clipping. A younger version of Riker standing beside his father at a corporate event. One sentence appeared beneath it. You still do not know what his family did. Everything fell apart on a Friday. Which felt unfair because Fridays were supposed to be hopeful. End of the week. Football games. Cheap pizza. Students pretending deadlines did not exist. Instead, I woke up to 43 notifications and the sudden realization that my life had become public entertainment again. My phone would not stop vibrating. Text messages, group chats, social media alerts. Even Tyler was calling. That alone was enough to trigger panic. Do not open anything yet, he said the second I answered. That sentence has literally never made anything better. Silence. Then Noah. My stomach dropped. Hard. 5 minutes later I understood why. Someone had uploaded a document online. Not a real document. At least not completely real. But close enough to cause damage. The file carried a forged Vaughn Industries logo across the top. Beneath it sat a fake agreement. My name appeared on one side. Riker's on the other. The title read Media Access Arrangement. Underneath, fabricated paragraphs described payment in exchange for proximity, publicity, and access to Riker Vaughn. Every fake signature looked disturbingly convincing. My vision blurred slightly. That is not real, I whispered. Tyler made a sound somewhere between a groan and a curse. I know. Unfortunately, the internet did not. By 10 in the morning, the document had spread across campus. By noon, people had already decided it was true, because fake stories traveled faster than real ones. Always. Comments flooded every platform. So Film Boy was using him. Knew it. Guess money buys loyalty. Poor Riker. Some comments were worse. Much worse. I stopped reading after the first 100. The humiliation settled into my chest like wet cement. Heavy. Suffocating. Permanent. I skipped lunch. I skipped class. Mostly I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling while my phone continued vibrating itself toward destruction. Then another notification appeared. Unknown number. Of course. The message contained only 4 words. We warned you. My hands shook slightly. Not from fear. Not entirely. Anger. Frustration. Exhaustion. I was tired of being watched. Tired of being manipulated. Tired of somebody controlling the narrative from behind a screen. Around 3 in the afternoon, Professor Martinez called. His voice sounded strained. The athletic department requested a meeting. My pulse immediately accelerated. Why? A pause. Because everyone has seen the document. Great. Fantastic. Exactly how I wanted to spend my Friday. 40 minutes later, I stood outside the basketball conference room, trying not to throw up. Students lingered nearby, pretending not to stare. Coaches moved through the hallways, speaking in low voices. Rumors had infected everything. Every glance felt different now. Sharper. Suspicious. Inside the room sat Coach Henderson. 2 athletic department administrators. Professor Martinez. And Riker. My heart sank the second I saw him. Not because he looked angry. That would have been easier. Riker looked unreadable. Controlled. Distant. Like somebody had locked every emotion behind reinforced glass. The meeting began immediately. Questions. Explanations. Clarifications. I answered everything honestly. The document was fake. The signatures were fake. The entire story was fake. Yet every answer felt inadequate. Because evidence, even fabricated evidence, always sounded convincing. One administrator finally turned toward Riker. Mr. Vaughn. The room went silent. Every eye shifted toward him, mine included. This was the moment. The moment when he would either believe me or not. Defend me or not. Trust me or not. Riker sat perfectly still. For 1 second. Then 2. Then 5. The silence stretched. My stomach twisted painfully. Because suddenly I remembered every warning message. Every anonymous threat. Every secret. Every piece of information he had hidden. Maybe this was it. Maybe I had misread everything. Maybe I had mistaken kindness for trust. Maybe I had never actually mattered. The silence continued, and for the first time since meeting him, I felt completely alone. Then Riker stood. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to command attention. His gaze moved around the room. Calm. Certain. The document is fake. Relief hit so fast it almost hurt. Nobody spoke. Riker continued. I know it is fake because I personally approved every stage of Noah's project. My name. Again. Not Bennett. Noah. The room remained silent. And because whoever created it used the wrong corporate template. One administrator blinked. Excuse me. The logo is 3 years out of date. Riker's voice never changed. The formatting is incorrect. The authorization code does not exist. The signature protocol is wrong. He paused. It took me 30 seconds to identify 6 errors. The room shifted instantly. Doubt became uncertainty. Uncertainty became suspicion. Just not toward me anymore. Riker looked toward the administrators. Someone targeted a student. His jaw tightened slightly. You should be investigating that. Nobody argued. Nobody even tried. Because suddenly the conversation had changed. Completely. The meeting ended shortly afterward. People filed out quietly. Administrators promised reviews. Coaches exchanged concerned looks. Eventually, only Riker and I remained. The door clicked shut behind the last person. Silence settled between us. Different this time. Heavy with everything neither of us knew how to say. Finally, I looked at him. You waited. The words escaped before I could. Stop them. Riker understood immediately. Of course he did. A shadow crossed his expression. I needed to know whether they were listening. For a second I thought. I stopped. Riker stepped closer. Not enough to erase the distance. Just enough to acknowledge it. I know. The quiet certainty in those 2 words hurt more than anything else. Because he really did know. Then my phone buzzed. Once. Loud in the silence. Unknown number. My blood ran cold. I opened the message slowly. There was no text this time. Only a photograph. A recent photograph. Taken through a window. Me and Riker standing alone in the conference room. Someone had been watching the entire meeting. The truth finally surfaced on game day. Not quietly. Not privately. It exploded across campus like a fire alarm nobody could ignore. Westbrook Arena was packed. Students filled the stands wearing blue and silver. Music thundered through the speakers. Cameras flashed. Everywhere I looked, people were talking. Looking. Whispering. The photograph from the conference room had spread overnight. So had dozens of new rumors. Some claimed I was secretly working for Vaughn Industries. Others insisted I had manipulated my way into Riker's life. By the time I arrived with my camera equipment, half the campus seemed convinced I was some kind of professional con artist. The worst part was that nobody knew who was behind it. Every post came from anonymous accounts. Every leak appeared from nowhere. Every accusation spread faster than facts. I tried focusing on work. It did not help. Students stared openly now. One guy near the concession stand actually asked for a selfie because he wanted proof he had met the guy who tricked the basketball captain. I laughed because the alternative was screaming. 30 minutes before tip-off, the athletic department announced an emergency statement would be made at center court. That was unusual enough to make the entire arena buzz with speculation. Coaches looked tense. Players exchanged confused glances. Even Mason seemed unsettled. I stood near the media section gripping my camera while anxiety performed gymnastics inside my chest. Then the giant screens above the court lit up. A hush swept through the arena. Riker walked onto the court first. The reaction was immediate. Cheers erupted from every direction. Students stood. Phones rose into the air. He barely reacted. His expression remained calm, focused, controlled. Beside him walked the athletic director. Behind them came 2 university technology specialists carrying laptops. My pulse immediately accelerated. Something was happening. Something big. The athletic director stepped to the microphone. Over the last several weeks, multiple students have been targeted by anonymous harassment. Murmurs spread through the crowd. This morning the university completed an investigation. Every sound in the arena seemed to disappear at once. The giant screen changed. A social media account appeared. Then another. Then another. Anonymous usernames. Anonymous messages. Anonymous posts. The same accounts responsible for the rumors. The threats. The forged contract. The photographs. My breath caught. A final image appeared. One student ID photograph. Derek Lang. The arena erupted. Shock rolled through the crowd like a wave. I stared at the screen, unable to process it. Derek. The film department star. The guy who had questioned me from the beginning. The guy who always seemed to know exactly which rumors were spreading. Suddenly, every piece fit together. The anonymous messages, the forged documents, the manipulated photographs. All of it. The athletic director continued speaking, but I barely heard him. My focus shifted when Riker stepped forward and took the microphone. The arena immediately fell silent again. Thousands of people waiting, watching, listening. Riker glanced briefly toward the stands, then toward me. My heart forgot how to function. A lot of people have spent weeks telling a story about Noah Bennett. My name echoed through the arena speakers. Every muscle in my body locked. Most of it was false. His voice remained calm, steady, certain. People claimed he was using me. Silence. Complete silence. They claimed he wanted access. Money. Attention. Riker looked directly into the nearest camera. They were wrong. Somewhere nearby, somebody gasped. Riker continued. Noah never asked me for anything. The giant screens displayed evidence. Timestamps. Messages. Security records. Every accusation dismantled piece by piece. Methodically. Publicly. Completely. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Then Riker said the one thing nobody expected, including me. At first, I thought he was a problem. Laughter rippled through the arena. Even I smiled despite myself. The corner of Riker's mouth lifted slightly. Then I thought he was brave. My chest tightened. Then I realized he was the only person on campus who treated me like a normal human being. The silence returned instantly. Softer this time. Emotional. Dangerous. Riker's gaze found mine across the court. Everything else faded. The crowd. The lights. The noise. I should have told him the truth sooner. His voice lowered slightly. Honest now. No walls. No distance. Because somewhere along the way, what started as an obligation stopped feeling like one. My pulse thundered in my ears. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The entire arena seemed frozen. Riker took one step forward. Then another. And if anyone still thinks Noah Bennett is here because he wants something from me. A pause. Just long enough to steal everyone's breath. The truth is I am the one who keeps finding reasons to stay near him. The crowd exploded. Cheers. Shouts. Applause. Noise crashed through the arena from every direction. I stood frozen beside the media section while my brain completely abandoned all professional responsibilities. Riker looked relieved for the first time since I met him. Actually relieved. Like he had finally put down something heavy. Then my phone buzzed. Once. Quietly. Unknown number. My stomach dropped instantly. The message contained only 6 words. This is not over. Check the locker.